We spend a third of our lives lost to the darkness, our minds adrift in the strange seas of slumber. Sleep. It's meant to be a sanctuary, a time of profound rest and regeneration. Our homes, in turn, are our fortresses, the ultimate shield against the chaos of the outside world. We lock our doors, draw our curtains, and surrender to the embrace of the night, confident in our safety. But what if that safety is an illusion? What if the very walls that promise protection are, in fact, an accomplice to something else? What if, in the deepest hours of the night, when you are most vulnerable, something stirs within the unseen architecture of your home? Something that watches you sleep. Something that lives inside the walls. The fear of the unseen, the unknown, is etched into our very DNA. It's a primal dread that transcends cultures and centuries. From ancient spirits said to haunt hearths to the whispered legends of the incubus and succubus, humanity has long grappled with the terrifying notion of a presence that invades our most private moments, particularly our sleep. Think of the old tales, the folklore passed down through generations. Spirits that cling to old houses, entities that attach themselves to families, or the concept of a house demon, a malevolent force bound to a structure. These aren't just quaint superstitions, they are echoes of a fundamental human anxiety, the fear that our domestic bliss, our personal haven, can be breached by something utterly alien and malevolent. Modern science offers explanations for some of these phenomena. Sleep paralysis, for example, a terrifying state where the mind wakes but the body remains paralyzed, often accompanied by vivid, frightening hallucinations of shadowy figures and crushing pressure. Many believe this explains away all such experiences. But what if, for some, it's not merely a trick of the mind? What if, sometimes, the mind is simply catching a glimpse of a truth too horrifying to fully comprehend? What if these experiences are not internal aberrations, but external, terrifying realities? It often begins subtly, almost imperceptibly, a sound that doesn't quite fit. The settling of an old house, we tell ourselves, the wind playing tricks, a branch scraping against a window. Our logical minds are adept at rationalizing away the anomalies, fitting them into the comfortable patterns of everyday life. Perhaps it's a faint scratching, a whisper of movement coming from behind the plasterboard, from within the very guts of the house. You might dismiss it as rodents, mice, squirrels, raccoons. You set traps, call pest control, but the sounds persist or shift, becoming more complex, less like the frantic scuttling of an animal and more like something else, something deliberate. Then come the cold spots. Patches of air suddenly frigid, cutting through the warmth of a room, even when the heating is on full blast. An unsettling chill that seems to emanate from a specific corner, or perhaps from the wall itself. You might shiver, pull your blanket tighter, and try to ignore it, but it registers, a subtle prickle on the skin, a whisper of unease in the subconscious. Objects, too, might begin to behave strangely. A book that was on the shelf now lies on the floor. A remote control misplaced, only to reappear in a spot you'd already checked. A cabinet door left ajar when you distinctly remember closing it. Tiny details, easily attributed to forgetfulness, to exhaustion, to simply being clumsy. But they accumulate. They gnaw at the edges of certainty, sowing seeds of doubt. Consider Sarah, a young professional living alone in a renovated Victorian home. For months, she'd experienced these minor disturbances. Faint tapping from the walls above her bed, a lingering smell of damp earth in her hallway, despite no visible leaks. She bought louder fans, sprayed air fresheners, and attributed it all to the quirks of an old building. Then, one night, she woke to the distinct sound of someone exhaling right next to her ear. Not a whisper, not a breath, but a slow, deliberate exhalation, like a sigh. The sound was so vivid, so immediate, that she bolted upright, heart pounding, convinced someone was in the room. But the room was empty. The window was locked. Nothing. She spent the rest of the night huddled under her covers, listening to the silence, straining for another sound. There was nothing, only the dull throb of her own fear. It is in these moments, when the rational explanations crumble, that the true terror begins to set in. The realization that what you are experiencing isn't just a coincidence, isn't just your imagination. It's a presence, and it's not outside. It's here. It's inside. The walls. They are more than just partitions. They are the skin of your home, hiding its intricate circulatory system of wires and pipes, its skeletal framework of studs and beams. They are a labyrinth of unseen spaces, dark voids perfect for concealment. And it is from these hidden depths that the entity often makes its true nature known. Imagine, you're lying in bed, the house quiet, save for the gentle hum of the refrigerator or the distant drone of traffic. Then you hear it. A distinct scraping, like claws on wood, moving slowly, deliberately, from one end of your bedroom wall to the other. Not frantic like a trapped animal, but methodical, almost exploratory. As if something is navigating the hidden passages of your home. Then comes the thumping. Not heavy, but rhythmic, a soft, steady thump, thump, thump that seems to pulsate through the plaster, right into your mattress. It's close, too close. You might press your ear against the wall, trying to pinpoint its origin, only for the sound to abruptly cease. A chilling silence follows, leaving you with the unsettling feeling that whatever was making the noise has stopped. Not because it left, but because it knows you're listening. It knows you're aware of its presence. And then, the eyes. Not always seen directly, but felt. A pervasive sensation of being observed, focused, scrutinized. Many accounts speak of noticing subtle changes in the texture of their walls, a new hairline crack appearing, a tiny pinhole that wasn't there before. And in the dead of night, when the room is plunged into absolute darkness, these tiny imperfections seem to deepen, to coalesce, to become something else. Pinpricks of light, or rather, an absence of light, a deeper blackness within the blackness that feels distinctly like an eye, peering out, watching. It's often reported around vents, those convenient grates that offer a direct, albeit small, portal into the interstitial spaces of your home. You might wake in the dark and feel a distinct, chilling draft coming from a closed vent, accompanied by the unnerving certainty that something is pressed against the other side, just inches from your face. Michael, a solitary man living in a quiet suburban house, recounted his ordeal. It started with faint whispers in the dead of night, sounds like voices speaking in a language he couldn't understand, coming from the shared wall between his bedroom and an unused guest room. He thought it was the neighbors, but their house was a good 50 feet away, and the voices were inside his home. Eventually, he started seeing them, glimpses, dark shapes moving behind the grates of his air conditioning vents. At first, he'd blink, convince himself it was just a trick of the light, an afterimage from his dreams. But the shapes became more defined, more frequent. Long, spindly limbs, a hint of something skeletal, pressing against the vent, peering through. He described waking up to the overwhelming smell of something akin to stale blood and damp earth emanating from the vent above his bed. And as he lay there, paralyzed by fear, he heard it. A soft, raspy inhale, then an exhale, right through the vent, echoing the rhythm of his own panicked breathing. It wasn't just observing, it was mimicking, it was interacting, and it was waiting. The true terror, however, isn't just in the knowledge of its presence. It's in the profound vulnerability it exploits. Sleep, the state where we are most exposed, most defenseless. This is its preferred stage, its hunting ground. Insomnia becomes a constant companion. You dread the night, The inevitable return of the darkness, the suffocating silence that only amplifies its subtle movements. You try to stay awake, to fight against the encroaching unconsciousness, but exhaustion is a relentless enemy. Eventually, you succumb, and that's when it truly begins its work. Many victims describe being jolted awake by an intense, overwhelming feeling of dread. Not a nightmare, not a sudden noise, but a visceral terror that courses through every fiber of their being. They lie there, eyes wide open in the darkness, unable to move, unable to scream, and they feel it, the weight of its gaze, the certainty that something is standing over them or lurking just at the periphery of their vision, emanating from the wall next to their bed. In these moments of profound paralysis, the entity sometimes reveals more of itself. Shadows that coalesce into indistinct figures, a fleeting glimpse of a distorted face pressed against the wall, peering through a crack that was never there. The sensation of icy tendrils touching your hair or pressing against your chest, originating from the wall behind you. One recurring nightmare shared by multiple accounts involves a sensation of being watched from within the very fabric of the house. People report dreaming of their bedroom walls becoming transparent, revealing a vast, dark, cavernous space behind them, filled with countless, glinting eyes, all focused on them, unblinking. Or they dream of the walls themselves slowly undulating, as if something enormous is pressing outwards, trying to break through. And the whispers. Oh, the whispers. They become clearer, more insistent. Not always intelligible, but undeniably voices. Low, guttural murmurs, sometimes overlapping, sometimes seeming to call your name, distorted and sibilant. They seem to emanate directly from the wall beside your head, as if a mouth is pressed against the plaster, speaking directly into your mind. Imagine waking to the distinct feeling of a presence, its cold breath on your neck, only to realize that the source isn't in the room, but behind the headboard, within the wall. The horrifying realization that something is close enough to feel its breath, but utterly unreachable, untouchable, hidden. The attacks become bolder, more physical. It's no longer just subtle displacements. Things begin to fall off shelves when no one is around. Doors slam shut with violent force. The air grows heavy, thick with an unseen presence, a suffocating weight that presses down on you. The scratching inside the walls can become frantic, as if something is tearing at the insulation, clawing at the wooden beams, trying desperately to get through. Sometimes, a faint, foul odor accompanies these episodes, a sickly sweet smell, like decaying meat, or a metallic tang, like blood. Victims describe their homes transforming from places of comfort into cages of dread. They start barricading their bedroom doors, taping up vents, sealing cracks. But it's futile. The entity seems to know. It adapts. If you seal one vent, the sounds will begin to emanate from another. If you block one crack, a new one mysteriously appears. The psychological toll is immense. Sleep deprivation sets in, blurring the lines between reality and nightmare. Paranoia becomes an unwelcome roommate. Every creak of the house, every shift in the wind, every shadow cast by the moonlight is interpreted as a sign of its presence. You begin to question your sanity, to doubt your perceptions. Are you going mad, or is something truly happening? One particularly disturbing account came from a woman named Clara, who had lived in her family home for decades. She started hearing a rhythmic thump, thump, scrape from within her bedroom wall, directly behind her antique dresser. It started softly, then escalated over weeks, becoming louder, more insistent. She described it as sounding like something large, heavy, and jointed, repeatedly impacting the wall, then dragging itself along. She tried to ignore it, then tried to find an explanation. She called an exterminator, then a structural engineer. No one found anything. No pests, no structural damage. But the sounds persisted. One night, the rhythmic thumping became so violent, so close, that a small piece of plaster cracked and fell from the wall, revealing a glimpse into the darkness beyond. Clara recounted seeing something large and gray, with a texture like rough hide, pulsating slowly in the gap. It wasn't a rat, not a possum. It was too big, too shapeless, too alien. And as she stared, frozen in terror, a single, black, unblinking eye slowly rotated into view within the gap, staring back at her with an intelligence that chilled her to the bone. She fled the house that night and never returned. These entities are not merely squatters. They are not simply lost spirits. They are observers, and their observation has a purpose. Many believe they are learning, studying us, our patterns, our fears, our vulnerabilities. They understand the intimate geography of our homes, navigating the hidden passages, the spaces between the familiar. They learn our schedules, our habits, the moments when we are most exposed. Perhaps they feed on our fear, or perhaps they are simply waiting for the opportune moment, for a specific weakness, a crack in our resolve, to fully manifest, to emerge from the walls and claim what they have been patiently watching. The chilling truth is that there is no escape. Not in your own home. You can sell the house, move to another city, another country. But what if it's not bound to the house, but to you? What if, in its patient observation, it has imprinted itself onto your very essence, a silent hitchhiker carried from one place to the next? Or what if, and this is perhaps the most terrifying thought of all, these entities are not unique? What if they are a widespread, ancient species dwelling within the very structures of our civilization, hidden in plain sight, in the empty spaces that define our most intimate sanctuaries? Every creak you hear in the dead of night, every unexplained cold spot, every faint whisper that seems to echo from behind the plasterboard, it could be nothing, or it could be a sign. A signal that something else is sharing your space, breathing the same air, lurking just beyond the threshold of your perception. It watches you sleep. It lives inside the walls. And it knows you're listening. It knows you're afraid.